The Democrats in the House Oversight Committee have announced that they are heading to Palm Beach, Florida next week. It is a place that obviously houses Donald Trump, but it was also central to Jeffrey Epstein's heinous crimes. The Democrats will be hosting a field hearing with many of the survivors of Epstein's abuse, along with crucial witnesses to the investigation. Palm Beach is, of course, where Epstein received that controversial sweetheart deal in 2008 that allowed him to keep abusing women for more than a decade longer. It is also, as we said, home to Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago club, where Epstein is known to have frequented before that plea deal. And as the Wall Street Journal reported late last year, Trump's club was, quote, sending spa employees, usually young women, to Epstein's nearby mansion for massages, manicures, and other spa services. That's according to former Mar-a-Lago and Epstein employees. I'm going to bring into our coverage Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California. He is the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Alex is here with me as well. Congressman, just take me inside your strategy for the field hearing.
Look, this is going to be a very important part of our investigation, and it's also really important that we hear directly from survivors. And so at the center of our hearing is really going to be giving the survivors an opportunity in their own words and in a hearing format to be able to share their stories and put them into the record and to be able to answer questions from the committee. Now, we have been saying for many months that it's important that at the end of the day, this is about centering the survivors and their stories. We've also heard that people want to hear these stories in a hearing format. Republicans have up to now refused to do so. And so we're hosting this hearing in Palm Beach, one of the key locations in this investigation, to allow these survivors to tell their stories and to hear, of course, from others. It's also important to know that there is so much reporting about what was actually happening at Mar-a-Lago and the connections to Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, all of the work that so many lawyers put in place to then only get overturned by Alex Acosta, the then U.S. attorney in the actual prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein, that we feel that this hearing in Palm Beach is going to be an important moment in this broader investigation.
Congressman, it's Alex Wagner. There's some reporting in Politico today that the Oversight Committee members are split on whether to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell in order to get her to testify. Can you shed any light on that and what the over-under is on something like that happening?
I mean, completely outrageous. I can tell you that without a doubt that every single Democratic member of the committee opposes a pardon strongly. We are united. We have been in opposing a pardon. And the fact that there's reports now that there are Republicans on our committee that support a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell is just broadly leads and takes us to essentially them being part of a massive cover-up. I mean, why would you want Ghislaine Maxwell, who's a known liar, a sex trafficker, someone who abused women and children herself, to get a pardon? We still have no answers as to why she was moved to a less secure prison. Why is the now acting AG meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell? And so these are questions that the DOJ has still refused to respond to. And the fact that now Republicans want a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, I mean, it's wrong, it's shameful, and it's so disrespectful to the survivors who have, by the way, come out strongly opposing a pardon.
Congressman, the survivors have described in excruciating detail her participation in the sexual assaults. What do Republicans say could possibly explain ahead of a midterms where they're predicted to be wiped out politically for pardoning a child rapist?
I think that, I mean, look, what you're hearing in some of the reporting or from folks on the committee is that
the war with Iran has entered its third month. And while a shaky ceasefire holds, diplomatic efforts between the U.S. and Iran look like they're at an impasse. Last night, President Trump posted on Truth Social that he would soon be reviewing the new peace proposal sent by Iran, but that he could not, quote, imagine that it would be acceptable in that they have not yet paid a big enough price for what they have done to humanity and the world over the last 47 years, unquote. The Strait of Hormuz remains a central flashpoint in the conflict, with both sides blockading the crucial trade route, choking the global economy as the price of oil has skyrocketed. Joining me now is Anne-Marie Slaughter, who will soon step down from her role as CEO of the think tank New America and become Dean of the School of Public Policy at the London School of Economics in early 2027. And of course, retired Admiral James Stavridis, the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. Anne-Marie, it feels like both sides are dug in. And when these things happen, usually the question is, who can bear the pain longer? What's your sense?
Yeah, this really is a game of chicken, right? Who's gonna blink first? I think the U.S. is in a really risky position because it's actually, and ironically, like Russia and Ukraine. Russia needs to win. The U.S. needs to win. Ukraine just needs not to lose. And Iran just needs not to lose. And Iran has tremendous capacity to take pain. It's got an authoritarian government. It's got a people who are now much more allied in favor of that government than they were back in January with all the protests. And it is the little guy against the big guy. This is, the U.S. has been here before, like Vietnam or Afghanistan. I really think the U.S. is more likely to blink first than Iran.
And to add to that, like Russia, Ukraine, for the little guy, it's existential.
Exactly.
For the superpower, it's one of many things
exactly.
going on. Jim, when you look at the naval blockade, how easy is it for the United States to keep this going indefinitely? How is there a path for Iran to get some of its oil out? There've been talk about hugging the coastline and getting the oil out that way. What is your sense?
I've sailed the Strait of Hormuz close to 100 times as a sea captain, and I have participated in several blockades around the world. My conclusion is blockades are inherently very difficult to maintain. This is 1,000 miles plus of coastline that we're blockading. It's an act of war, by the way. And there's always going to be leakage. Think the movie Gone with the Wind, Rhett Butler showing up with beautiful cigars and silk scarves from Paris through the Lincoln blockade of the American South. Having said all that, I agree with my good friend Anne-Marie. Congratulations on the LSC, by the way. And I would simply add, I think in the White House, they are now starting to look at additional military options because this tale of two blockades is going to be difficult to sustain. So to conclude, Fareed, I think the president's looking at probably a package of 3 different military options. One, go after more leadership, try and take out some of the intransigent members of the Revolutionary Guard. Number 2, perhaps go after the oil infrastructure, quite risky, could lead to retaliation. And third, let's call it strategic preparation of the Strait of Hormuz in case you have to open it militarily, which may be the next move on the chessboard.
And if this negotiation gets going, it feels like the key issues are, Strait of Hormuz has to be opened, what to do about the enriched fuel, and then the length of the suspension, where Iran agrees not to suspend. It feels to me like all Trump is looking for is a deal that he can say is better than Obama's nuclear deal.
I think that's right, but I think that's going to be incredibly hard to do because honestly,
let me be direct about something before getting into the policies of this. The survivors at the center of this story are real people who experienced documented, prosecuted, convicted crimes. Ghislaine Maxwell is a convicted sex trafficker sitting in federal prison. Jeffrey Epstein abused women and girls for decades, operating in part through networks that directly through Palm Beach. The same Palm Beach where a 2008 non-persecution agreement was quietly arranged, where Mar-a-Lago sits a few miles from Epstein's mansion, and where spy employees from Trump's club were, according to former staff on both properties, being sent to Epstein estates for services. These are not allegations in the political sense. The conviction is on the record. The plea deal is on the record. The Wall Street Journal reporting at Mar-a-Lago is on the record. That foundation matters because the hearing of House Democrats are planning needs to be evaluated against its honesty, including its strength and its risks. The strategic logic is not sound enough on its face. Democrats are minority. They don't control committee agendas, subpoena power, or hearing schedules on the Republican-led Oversight Committee. Filed hearings are one of the few procedural tools available to minority members who want to create a formal record and a public one simultaneously. Holding it in Palm Beach is not subtle. The geographic symbolism is the point. This is the location where the sweetheart deal happened. This is where the relevant connections are documented. Bringing survivors to testify in that specific place, in that specific format, puts the stories into the congressional record in a way that can easily be dismissed or buried. Congressman Garcia's farming that the center of the hearing is giving survivors a formal opportunity to speak in their own words is genuinely the right instincts, if it's executed with the seriousness it deserves. These women have been through extensive litigation, media coverage, public security, and in some cases, years of being disbelieved or ignored. A congressional hearing format done well can provide a kind of institutional acknowledgement that other venues haven't fully delivered. Done poorly, it becomes a backdrop for partisan combat, and the survivor's testimony becomes incidental to the political messaging operation. The Maxwell pardon question is where this gets genuinely alarming, and it's not being covered with the seriousness it warrants. Republicans on the Oversight Committee are apparently discussing the possibility of pardoning a convicted sex trafficker, a woman whose victims have explicitly, publicly, and repeatedly stated their opposition to any pardon as a mechanism for getting her testimony set aside for a moment. The moral gross query of offering executive clemency to someone convicted of facilitating child sexual abuse focus on the operational logic. Maxwell has already invoked the Fifth Amendment when pressed to testify. The theory that a pardon will unlock her cooperating assumes she wants to tell the truth and is only constrained by legal exposure. There is no particular reason to believe that's true. Maxwell has spent years constructing a version of events designed to minimize her culpability and protect certain relationships. A pardon removes her legal jeopardy without compelling her to say anything she doesn't want to say. So the question Garcia is implicitly raising, why would Republican members want this, given those obvious limitations, is the right question. The most straightforward answer is also the most uncomfortable one. If you are not actually trying to get the full story, but you want to appear cooperative with the investigation while ensuring that cooperating produces nothing incriminating to specific people, a Maxwell pardon that results in vague, carefully managed testimony is a better outcome than no testimony at all. The optics of bipartisan investigation without the substance of one. The transfer to a less secure facility is an underreported thread in all of this. Maxwell is a convicted felon serving a lengthy sentence. Prison facility assignments are even random.